My recently engaged friend implied that I wasn't engaged because my boyfriend doesn't actually want to get married after being together for 3 years, and I'm upset because I'm scared that she's right. My friend Elise, 29 female, is engaged to Rick, 32, and I, 29 female, am dating Luke, 31 male. Elise and Rick have been engaged for a year, together for 2, and I've been with Luke for 3 years. So, Elise and Rick had their engagement party on Sunday afternoon. I was chatting with Elise, looking at her ring, and I'm not going to lie, I felt a bit of envy. Luke and I have talked about marriage, but we haven't even looked at rings yet. He says he wants to marry me though, but I do think it's taking a long time. So I asked Elise what made Rick propose to her, like how it happened. She told me that on their first date, she told him that she had a deadline. I asked what she meant, and she said that she told Rick she wasn't going to wait around for 2, 3, 4, 5 years for a man. Any man, not him in particular. She said she wants kids with the right guy, but didn't want to have kids without a stable marriage and a house. Well, they have a house and now are getting married. Another one of her friends, I don't know her age, but I'll call her Heidi, said she was shocked that it didn't make Rick run for the hills. Elise laughed and said, well, it wasn't an ultimatum, it was a fact. If after 2 years you still can't tell if I'm the one, then I'm clearly not, and I'll be moving on. I told Elise that if I told Luke that, he would leave me. That's when Elise said that Luke probably isn't the right one then, if after 3 years he'd leave me for expecting marriage. That hurt my feelings, so I told her that marriages don't always last, and it doesn't mean that someone isn't the one just because they propose. She said she wasn't worried, that she and Rick were in love, and knew life would not be easy, but she's prepared to make it work. She also said that she knows marriage isn't for everyone, which is fine, so as long as your partner feels the same, but that marriage is a value of hers, and she wasn't going to waste time with someone who clearly didn't have the same values as her. That's when Heidi asked me what my problem was. I told her I didn't have a problem, just stating a fact. Then Heidi asked how long I've been with Luke. I said 3 years. And she asked if I wanted to get married. I said yes, and when she asked about what Luke wanted, I just excused myself to the restroom. Not much else happened at the party, but when Luke and I left, I told him about the conversation. Luke laughed and called Elise ridiculous. I asked what he meant, and he said, verbatim, only desperate and crazy women have a policy like that. Let it happen when it feels right. So I asked him if he wanted to marry me, to which he said of course, and I asked him why we weren't engaged when we've been together for longer. He said he wasn't ready yet and our relationship is fine the way it was. I asked how long did he have to wait to know, and he shrugged and said, does it matter? We're together and that's what's important. The conversation paused for a minute and then Luke asked me not to be like Elise. He said he doesn't like being forced to do something. I asked him if Rick felt that way. He's good friends with Rick. He admitted that Rick never said he felt forced and that he had been planning to propose to Elise 6 months after they met, but waited a bit to make sure he wasn't just jumping into something. I asked Luke if it would be okay for me to look at rings. He said I could, but not to get my heart set on anything because he wasn't ready, and he said that even if he wasn't willing to spend more than $1,500 on an engagement ring. Elise's ring obviously cost more than that. I never asked her how much it was, but center diamond is 2 carats and the rest of the band is covered in diamonds. I remember she was asked once about how much it was. She wouldn't answer but said that Rick bought her a ring that he wanted her to love and did not care about the price. He found the ring she'd like, looked at the price, and saved the money to purchase it debt-free. I didn't mention that to Luke, but her telling me that came back when Luke said that he was only willing to spend $1,500 on a ring I'm not even allowed to really look for. I'm not sure why, but the conversation with Luke and Elise has made me very sad. I'm slightly angry at Elise for her implications, but mostly I'm disappointed in Luke based on our conversation Sunday. He hasn't mentioned it since this weekend, but it's all I can think about. Did Elise go about it the right way? Is Luke wasting my time? Both of those conversations Sunday had me feeling like something's off. Update. My recently engaged friend implied I was engaged because my boyfriend doesn't actually want to get married after being together for 3 years. Long story short, we broke up. Several comments said I needed to communicate what I wanted clearly to Luke. So I took an hour to write out what I really wanted in the next couple of years and then told Luke the night I posted the first thread. I told him that after 3 years, we should be seriously considering the next step. I told him that I wanted kids, and with my age, I'm scared of the health problems and complications, especially with COVID overtaking the hospitals around us. I told him that before we buy a house, we were looking, that I want to be at least engaged like Elise and Rick were. That's not a comparison per se, but I reflected on this and I think buying a house with a boyfriend who can't tell me when he wants to be engaged isn't very smart. Elise and Rick were engaged when they bought their house, so were several of our married friends, and I realized that that's the minimum stage in our relationship that I want to be in before purchasing a home. Luke's reaction was not pleasant. He told me he felt like I was trapping him in a corner and demanding a ring when I wasn't. I told him that I wanted to plan to see if we were on the same page, but I wasn't expecting a ring tomorrow or anything, just over the next year or so. He told me that he'll propose when he's ready, and me bringing it up over and over again is making him not want to do it because he thinks that I just want a ring, but I don't. I want a family, but I don't want to be one of those women who has a kid with a man who doesn't actually want the same things I do. I told him that he doesn't seem like he wants to get married, and that's when he said it. Luke told me that he wants to get married, but admitted he didn't know anymore if he wanted to marry me in particularly. When I asked why, he said he doesn't think that I have enough ambition. Luke wants to get a promotion at his job. He works in marketing. He's going to school for his master's, and he's into self-improvement like going to the gym and eating healthier and mental health books. He said he felt like I just wanted marriage and kids and that I would be a stay-at-home mom, which he doesn't want me to do. He wants me to work, but I work as a secretary for a psychology service. Luke makes almost 3 times as much as I do, and I don't want to go back to school. I hated it the first time, and I can't afford to do it again even if I wanted to. Plus, I love my job. Great pay, great benefits, and my bosses and coworkers are really cool. But he told me that was an excuse. He doesn't want to be tied to someone who is, as he said, okay with just being okay, and that he wants more than that out of life. I was angry because I feel like I've asked him this before and he always said that he wants to marry me. I did tell him before that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom if financially we could afford it, and I guess he didn't want me to be, so I told him that I was done with the conversation and have been staying at a friend's house. I've messaged him a couple times to try to talk to him since, but he only responds saying that he thinks we're on different pages and that the relationship needs to be done so we can find what we want. I'm really sad and upset, and I feel like I wasted my time and Elise was right. Luke took our relationship status off of Facebook, and a ton of people have been asking what happened. His response to my text messages also just seems so cold. From what I've heard from mutual friends, he sounds like he's doing okay and went out Friday night.
Am I wrong for how payment was handled at my wedding? I am genuinely conflicted on this as I see both sides, so getting feedback from all of you. I recently got married at a venue about 200 miles away from where I live, so many things were done virtually and I hadn't met many of these people in person that I planned the wedding with. For payments, our venue required a deposit, a payment 6 months before our wedding date, then a final payment once the charges were finalized, based on headcount. Our first 2 payments were made as scheduled with no issues. We finalized our headcount and settled on a final amount for all services rendered. The final amount was around $15,000. The vendor allowed payment through a check by mail or someone dropping off the check in person. Being out of state, we opted for option 2. I sent out a check to the venue through online bill pay and got confirmation the payment was to be delivered by the day of the wedding, which was a Saturday. I had a confirmation number from my bank payment was sent and money was taken out of my account. The wedding was wonderful and I enjoyed the next day, Sunday, with my husband. We received a text from the vendor and she said she still hadn't gotten the check. I looked at my bank account and see that the check was sent with a delivery date of the next day, Monday. I shared a screenshot of this with the vendor, including the confirmation number. I offered to call my bank with her on the line as confirmation. I offered to Venmo or Zelle her the money. She insisted on a physical check, which I do not have as I am out of town. She told us she would withhold our items left behind, unused favors, the top of our cake, guest book, other items. I explained again how the check would be there tomorrow and I offered Venmo or Zelle again and she refused to accept anything except a physical check. I had to spend over 30 minutes on the phone with my bank to stop payment on the check, which cost me $50. Then I had to transfer money to my mom so her check would clear. Then I had to drive back to my mom's house to physically get the check, which was 30 minutes away, then come back to the venue to hand deliver the check, which was another 45. When we got to the venue, the manager, not the person I had been texting with, thanked me for the check and told me not to worry as it would be put in the lockbox and they don't cash checks until Tuesday. At this point, I asked why I had to spend the day after my wedding running around town when my check wouldn't be cashed for a few days and the original check was due tomorrow. We argued back and forth, no yelling, just trying to understand what happened. I 100% understand and agree that the vendor must be paid for services rendered, but I am frustrated I have to spend the morning after my wedding running around doing this, only to learn it wouldn't be cashed until Tuesday, after my payment was set to arrive. Am I the asshole for being upset that I had to spend my morning like this and arguing with the manager when I dropped off the check? I met my boyfriend's mom 4 days ago. I don't know if I'm overreacting breaking up with him because of how she acted during dinner. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years long distance. We met while we were both on vacation. In that time, I have met his family but only through Zoom. We couldn't meet in person due to the intensive degree program I was doing. So, in the last 2 years, my boyfriend has been traveling to see me every 2 months. Now that I'm done with my program, I can pretty much work anywhere, and since I work from home, I thought I would move into my own place in the city my boyfriend lives in and continue to explore our relationship. I went to look at apartments and then went to meet his family in person for the first time and have dinner. Everything was going well. I met his parents, his brothers, and their spouses. His mom was very pleasant until dinner started. His oldest brother's wife had made an appetizer and served it. It was really good, but their mom put the appetizer in her mouth, made a noise, and then made it seem like she had to force herself to swallow it. She said something like, "That's a different taste," and made a disgusted face. There was nothing wrong with the appetizer. She then went to the kitchen and came out with the same appetizer and said, "It's good I made the same one just in case." Oh my god, she's a monster-in-law. I would say run, but not really run because if he's a good man, it's like, oh, what do I do? I expected the daughter-in-law to say something, but she just kept quiet. No one said a word and the conversations continued like it was normal. The mom with the daughter-in-law and the other spouses then helped take away our plates that still had the first appetizer on them, served hers on new plates, and told us all to eat. It was the same appetizer, there was no difference. In fact, I preferred the daughter-in-law's because hers had more vanilla. I was astounded that she did this. Dinner continued and it was all made by the mom. She kept asking how the food was and made passive-aggressive comments about certain dishes that were made before by the other daughter-in-laws. I didn't ask anything because I was shocked, but after we left dinner, I asked my boyfriend what happened. He said his mom is really passionate about her cooking and doesn't like anyone to outdo her. I said, "So does this happen at every family dinner?" And he said yes. His mom tries to outdo them. He said his brother's wives don't take it personally because they know how she is and that it's really coming from a place of love. I'm sorry, but what I saw is not from a place of love, and the daughter-in-law seemed like she was going to cry. My boyfriend finally said she's just territorial about her cooking, and other than that, she's very normal. I finally asked him when did this behavior start, and he said when his eldest brother first brought a serious girlfriend home. His eldest brother is 8 years older than him, so I asked from the time they were dating up till now, did all of your brother's partners go through this? And he said yes. I said, do you think your mom's behavior is bad? And he got a little offended and said, no, I just think she's passionate about making good food. I've been thinking on it, replaying the dinner and comments over and over in my head, and there's no way I can sign myself up for this kind of life. My boyfriend and I are starting to talk about marriage and the future and kids, and I'm very nervous now. His brother's wives have endured abuse over their cooking since the start of their relationship with their spouse's mother, and no one says a thing. Not them, not their husbands, not his dad, and not my boyfriend. How the is this okay? How can I sign my up for this level of insult every time there's a family dinner? If my boyfriend and I reach that stage, can I never cook anything? Will she always try to upset me? Will she make comments about my cooking? Like, what the I don't know if I can set myself up to walk into a toxic family situation like this. I would rather leave. I honestly am really considering breaking up with him because of this.
Storytime about how my best friend got my house raided. So a little background information, I was 16 and in 11th grade, and we're going to call my best friend Jenna. Jenna and I have been on and off friends since elementary school. Now, the reason why we were on and off friends was because Jenna was the type of person who ended up in drama all the time. And coincidentally, anytime that I would stop being her friend, I would be in no drama. Now, there have been multiple times where I've tried to break off our friendship for good, but Jenna, of course, was the type of girl who would threaten to unalive herself whenever things didn't go her way. And I low-key have a savior complex. Also, I literally lived right across the street from her. So it was very hard to cut this friendship off. Well, anyways, fast forward, so her and I are friends, which also wasn't good because she was a very bad influence on me. For example, I didn't have a driver's license, but I had a car. So of course I would go pick her up and her and I would fuck shit up together, aka do bad things. Well, the one night I let her drive and she ended up going to my ex-boyfriend's house like for part 2 about how my best friend got my house raided. So like I said, no license, but I had a car and I let her drive that night. And she went to my ex-boyfriend's house. Now, her and him used to be close whenever him and I were dating. And I didn't think anything of it until she called him and she kept telling him to come outside of his house so we could fight him. And I'm telling her to stop, but she just keeps laughing the whole time and she always does shit like this. And I was tired of being pulled into shit like this because then I got named the psycho stalker girl. So then I find out that after she went home that night, she texted my ex with this whole elaborate story about how I was the one who made her drive to his house and say all that shit. So fast forward, her and I got into it at school because I told a counselor that she was threatening to unalive herself because I was really worried for her. But then she starts posting stuff about my mental health on social media, saying things like, oh, she has zebra stripe arms. And I fought her after that. Because the only reason why I told our counselor is because I gave a shit about her mental health, like for part 3. Part 3 about how my best friend got my house raided. So like I said, she posted stuff online about my mental health, and then her and I, we ended up fighting at school, and her mom decided to press charges, but then I ended up showing the cops everything that she had said to me online and all the bullying that she was doing, and how she would literally blackmail me into being friends with her. And this made Jenna and Jenna's mom super unhappy, so they ended up filing a false report about me to the police, saying that I have illegal stuff in my house, and I do this, and I do that, and I plan on unaliving my mom. Like, what the fuck? So in the middle of the night, my whole family and I are woken up by this loud banging on our front door. So my mom, hurry up, go open the door, and they're saying that they have a warrant, and come to find out, the only thing that they could find were a bunch of empty vapes, which my mom was not happy about. And yeah, my mom and I's relationship is super rocky sometimes, but I would never try to unalive her.
My husband has a girl best friend and I hate it. Story time. My husband Steve has a best friend who we'll call Amy, and they have known each other their whole life. They're like childhood best friends. In the past, I've overheard Steve say that he owes Amy his life. He's told me before that they got together when they were in high school, but nothing else has ever happened. Now, I have never really been Amy's biggest fan, but I'd say a turning point for me was when Steve decided to have Amy as his best woman at our wedding. I feel like Amy's definitely the definition of a pick-me girl. I never ever thought I'd be this girl, but I've asked Steve to cut Amy out of his life multiple times. But he said that he didn't think this was a necessary move. Everything did get a little bit better last year when Amy got married, and this relationship moved pretty quick. They were married and pregnant within 4 months of dating. Now, unfortunately, the guy did up and leave Amy when she was pregnant, and this made her mental health spiral, as you can imagine. And it was also when Amy and Steve's relationship started to get a little bit closer. Steve, my husband, started to take Amy to her midwife appointments. Next thing you know, he's building the nursery, and he even promised that he would be there at the birth of the baby. So as you can imagine, I've now got some pretty strong feelings towards Amy. So I expressed all of this to Steve, and he said as a sorry, he was going to book me a really fun birthday day. He called it like my celebrity day. We had a really nice hotel booked, an expensive meal, but it just so happened that Amy went into labour 6 weeks early. At this point, I'd had enough, and I was like, babe, this is my day, okay? Please do not let this other woman ruin it for me. And that was when Steve told me to grow up and stop being so childish. He said that we can celebrate another day, or I could ask one of my friends to come with me. I told him to not bother coming home unless he had a paternity test for that child. And just a couple of add-ons about Amy. Amy's husband actually left her because she cheated on him. And if you're thinking, why hasn't this girl got any friends to go to the birth with her, and why is she picking someone else's husband? It's because she gets with all of her friends' boyfriends. Literally all my family and all of his family think that this baby is his. And actually, next week I'm going on my birthday celebration with Steve's mum. And your mum actually said that she wishes that I had been her child and not you. Have fun with your new family, babe. My ex wanted me to be a crazy ex-girlfriend, and he ended up ruining his life over it. Story time. So my boyfriend Steve has always been the biggest drama queen. Every single disagreement ended up turning into a massive argument. And after 6 months, I got so tired of it all, so I decided to leave him. And the breakup went surprisingly well. It was smooth, quick, painless. The breakup kind of came about because we were having an argument because I did not want to move in with a guy that I had only known for 4 months. And my knowing this matter caused tears and screams. You should have seen this boy. It's quite tragic, actually. I should have just ended it all there and then, to be honest. So after that breakup, I actually didn't hear from him for a few days. And then I started to get all of these strange Facebook messages. They said that I should stop bothering him, and if they found out that I was at his house again, that they would report me to the police. You know, shocker, I actually had never done any of the sort. I was sent screenshots of texts that I had supposedly sent but never did. Some of his friends even called my boss and told them that I was using the store cameras to monitor what he was doing. I basically worked as an assistant for a photographer, and they were claiming that I was stealing cameras and taking pictures of my ex. But my boss knew what my boyfriend was like, so he just shunned it all off. So one weekend, I was in the mall and I saw my ex, and he started running towards me, arms out wide, wanting a hug. I was obviously having none of that, so I just walked straight past him, leaving him with his arms outstretched. And next thing I know, I am being pulled back by my hair. Next thing I know, a woman is screaming in my face, telling me to stop stalking her boyfriend. So I just laughed in her face, which looking back was a really, really bad idea, because she just went straight in and yeah. She slapped me. She was screaming, stop stalking my boyfriend, and before I knew it, the attack was done and over. It was so quick, it happened all in a blur. Anyway, then security came over and this woman starts telling them how I'm a stalker and I've been threatening her boyfriend. And then I ended up getting kicked out of the mall and arrested. Like for part 2?